Most adults in America think this country is on a decline from which it won't return. In other words, they're pessimistic about the future of America. Where do you think that comes from? That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. In late April, Pew Research reported this: Americans are in a negative mood about the current state of the country, with large majorities expressing dissatisfaction with the economy and overall national conditions. That came on the heels of a January survey from NBC that found 71% of Americans were pessimistic about the future of this nation, thinking that America, by and large, is on a wrong track. Where does that come from, I ask you again? I can tell you in just a couple words, but first, I want to quickly mention, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for your faith-based podcast. Bold and Blunt is among the offerings there, the very esteemed offerings, the very interesting offerings. Check it out, but make sure you subscribe to Bold and Blunt there as well. Or you may subscribe to Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com. Just scroll to the bottom of the page, find the newsletter section, click on it, look for Bold and Blunt with Cheryl Chumley, and sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter containing all my commentaries that I write for the Washington Times, as well as my Tuesday and Thursday podcasts. But I want to also announce a new product, a new newsletter we have going out from the Washington Times, which won't simply feature Bold and Blunt and some of my writings, but other faith-based writings and podcasts at the Washington Times. It's called Higher Ground. It's an awesome new newsletter, and it's just out now. You can go to the bottom of WashingtonTimes.com, look in the newsletter section once again, and you'll see it. Higher Ground. Just click on that little box and type in your email address, and you will start getting that delivered right to your email box. Look, check it out. This is going to be really great. There aren't too many news organizations out there that are also focusing solely on faith-based issues, and this is what Higher Ground does. So check it out. There are all kinds of people who are going to be writing for this new newsletter, as well as regular ones, such as Billy Hallowell, right? You see his column at the Washington Times, and he does a tremendous job of covering faith-based issues. He has a podcast that is going to be part of this Higher Ground as well. He's all over the place, and he's a smart guy, very up on faith issues, and you're going to want to read his stuff in Higher Ground as well. But let me quickly mention, you may also get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are offered, right? So if it's easier for you just to go to your Google search engine and type in Bold and Blunt and see what pops up and subscribe there, so be it. I'm okay with that. I'm very happy with that. So let me get back to the topic at hand today, which is the pessimism of Americans, the pessimism of American adults, and the fact that more and more Americans, it seems like in the last few years, are starting to be really dark and gloomy on their outlook for America. And this is something that really doesn't jive with what America stands for. America is about freedom and opportunity and equality and justice and, all the Superman hero type of characteristics that us in the older generations grew up with, right? Truth and freedom and justice and the American way. But even those in the newer generation, still you learn about the Constitution and you learn about the Declaration of Independence and you learn about what makes America great, except instead, you have teachers balancing out that patriotic, truthful teachings of America with more negative looks at how America has failed, how America advanced slavery, how America has advanced colonization around the world, supposedly, and how America has been the evil one in the world, starting all these evil problems in the world and contributing to all the evil deeds of the world. Well, it's not exactly true. And you can learn about the Constitution and Declaration of Independence in today's public school systems, but they really tamp it down with all the negativity that they push about America. This is by design of the socialists. This is by design of the communists and Marxists who want to indoctrinate the next generation of America's leaders to hate America so as to crumble America and cripple America from within, so as to bring in this big globalist Great Reset takeover of America. And if you want to know why Americans are really in a negative mood about the outlook, about the future of America, as I promised, I said, I could tell you in just a couple of words. It's God-given rights. Think of that phrase, and think of where those stand nowadays. It used to be in this country, it was a given, it was understood, it was inherent even, that our rights as individuals came from God, and government was only there in service to the people, in humble service to the people, to protect those God-given rights as outlined in the Constitution, as explained and illuminated by the Declaration of Independence, as analyzed and put to the legal and scholarly tests by some of the founding fathers' earlier writings, Common Sense, for instance, and other writings that the founding fathers put forward as they were creating and shaping this great foundation of America based on the idea, on the radical idea at the time. And even today, in most countries, it's considered a radical idea that you as an individual don't need government to tell you what you're allowed to do, because you as an individual are already born with the rights that God gave you. And so that puts you in the leadership role and government in the subservient role. You as an individual get to tell government what to do, because even the President of the United States, not to mention police in America, not to mention teachers in America, they all work for you. Your money supports them, and you're the one with the dominant rights. They're the ones who are only there to serve to support those rights that you as an individual have. So if you look forward in America at these dark times that most in America seem to think are coming, all roads lead back to the fact that we have lost that concept of God-given individual liberties. I said I could explain it in a few words, and I just did. That's the biggest problem going on in America right now. The loss of God-given liberties. It's actually not that we've lost God-given liberties. You can't lose what God has given, right? But we've lost belief in the idea of God-given liberties. We've forgotten how to fight for them. We've forgotten how to teach our children to fight for them. We've failed to explain why this concept is so crucial to the foundation of America. We've allowed people like Barack Obama to corrupt our minds and tell us that America is bad and you didn't build that, and America is sorry and apologizes for everything that America has done evil again on the world stage. We've tainted the greatness of America with this fake sorrow that we're supposed to feel, this fake, feigned, fabricated, completely falsified history of America that puts us as the ones to blame, the responsible party for all the ails in the world. It's just not true. There's nobody more charitable than Americans. Even today, even Americans who are pessimistic about the future of America. Even today, we give. When we see somebody in need, we give. Now, Democrats give in a way that reaches into your and my pocket, right? They don't give out of their own pockets too frequently. They're more about raising taxes so they can take those tax dollars and distribute them as they see fit and redistribute them as they see fit. They're not so much about breaking into their own bank accounts and giving till it hurts. But conservatives, patriotic Americans, kind-hearted, compassionate Americans that are still by and large the majority in America give when they see people hurting. And not even in America. They give overseas. That's in addition to all the money that comes from the government, from tax dollars, U.S. aid and so forth, and all this spending we do to spread democracy around the world. That's all tax funded. That's in addition to that. We give out of our own pockets. If there's a tsunami in another part of the world, and the American Red Cross calls for donations, and United Way reminds Americans that there are those hurting from this tsunami, who do you think rises up and gives? We do. But the left wants that forgotten. The left wants that. The left wants that put forth as if we owe this, as if it's expected of us because we've committed so many atrocities in the world, both in our time and previously, that this is all payback. So this is why Americans are pessimistic, because even when they do give, they're told that, well, yeah, you have to give because you've committed so many sins, you owe it. The fact is, if America wants to stay on a path of optimism about the future of America, we have to look beyond the Democrats. We have to look beyond the leadership in the White House, because that will just bring us down, down, down. We have to look beyond the mainstream media and how much they lie and how they even help the Democrat Party go after political opponents like Donald Trump, right? I mean, come on, Donald Trump has to be the most persecuted politician in American history. When does it end? It won't end until he dies, sadly, and even then, his political persecutors will try and carry on the persecution to obliterate his family, to remove his name from any type of good reporting in history books. But we have to look beyond that, and we have to reawaken to the idea that the war in America is all about reclaiming and retaining God-given individual liberties. And if we do that, if we stay focused on that fight, yes, there will be dark days, but the outlook, the overall outlook for America will be one of optimism, because you can't kill a spirit, right? You cannot kill the spirit of liberty, and you cannot kill the spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, which courses through America, which forged the great foundation of American exceptionalism, and which is still very much alive and well in America. So stay optimistic, America. Don't let these polls and surveys just underscore how you're already feeling when you turn on the news. And listen to my guest today, because her name is Judge Jeanine Pirro. She has written a new book out there that highlights some of the evils of the left. I expect this may be volume 1 of 20 volumes, right? I mean, there certainly is enough food for thought on that topic. But she has outlined these evils so as we can be properly armed to better fight. Judge Jeanine Pirro, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. It is great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think we've spoken before.
We have spoken.
Bold and Blunt. Yes.
Absolutely. You were a great guest then, and I'm sure you're going to be equally bold and blunt today. I'm on your website, judgejbook.com. I'm looking at the title of your newest book, Crimes Against America, The Left's Takedown of Our Republic. And the first thought that goes through my mind is, how did you edit this down to book length when you consider all that Joe Biden has done?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. It may be a lot to cover, but the truth is that it was one of the quickest books I've ever written, because there was so much to add that I couldn't add but so much to say. The truth is that America is no longer a sovereign nation. We are nothing more than a globalist landing spot with benefits. And the truth is that people decide they want to come here, and we accommodate them. They demand entry, and they get everything: education, medication, housing. And we don't even know who they are. We don't know, what their intent is when they come here. So although we are all immigrants, at the same time, there's always been an orderly process and at least an idea of who people are who are coming here. Right now, they have no identification. The Biden administration is doing very little to vet them. And in fact, there was a court order that ordered that the administration give them alien registration numbers because the administration wanted to allow them to enter the country en masse in a group without even getting a number, just on the old honor system, the way they got here. Just give us your word and tell us you'll show up in an immigration court. And by the way, if you need a phone, if you need food, a hotel, anything you need, we'll take care of it. This is aiding and abetting the invasion of the United States by a Biden administration that is so corrupt, not only in terms of how it's running it, but the administration is facilitating and aiding and abetting these illegal entries. 5 million in the last 2 years, 10 million expected in the next 2 years. And, we all want to come to America. We're all immigrants. But I want to know, among the group, who's a criminal? Who's an identity thief? Who thinks that they can beat their wife, drive drunk? Who's a robber? Who's a murderer? Who's an MS-13 gang member? Who's a Latin king? Maybe who's a terrorist? Who's with a drug cartel setting up the artery in the United States? And make no mistake, fentanyl is coming through that southern border where Alejandro Mayorkas lies and tell us that the border is secure. That is the biggest joke in the country right now.
Do you think seriously that America can withstand the next year and a half of a Joe Biden administration?
Well, we're not going to have any choice. He was elected president, and that's the way it goes. But at the same time, I think that, as Americans work 2 jobs and 3 jobs and try to get through inflation and the cost of living, in addition to the fact that, I don't know how much eggs are now, it doesn't. It is almost impossible to think that we can take care of another 15 million people, or that we should. But the laws, they have to be enforced. They keep saying the system is broken. It's not broken. Nobody's enforcing the law. It's really that simple.
Which sets the stage for a peril in America that I can't see the way out of, because the next president is going to have to do what Donald Trump tried to do, round up illegals and deport them back to their own countries. The media won't stand for that. So where do you see this leading?
Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that, there'll be some accommodation somehow for these people, but at the same time, we've got to try to figure out how we can protect Americans. And that is the big issue right now. I'm not so worried, about them, but what I can tell you is that in New York City, the mayor moved kids out of their gyms to put adult males in the gyms and told the kids there won't be any phys ed, physical education, until the end of the year. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been a prosecutor and a judge and a DA for 30 years. And if you're going to put adult males near a school, I want to vet those adult males. I want to know who they are.
You think?
I want to know why they're near my kids. And, that's just part of crimes against America, the let's take down of our republic. You've got in the schools, our kids are not being educated, they're being indoctrinated. And it goes on from there. And we've got a criminal justice system where cashless bail is the concept that people believe is so important, and criminals are running free, and victims are simply told, too bad, you had a bad day. And that's got to change. But this is all part of the left's plan to take down this country and to turn it into a socialist Marxist a country. And we'll be like Venezuela if they have their way. And, in terms of not just crime, but how about the Justice Department calling parents domestic terrorists because parents are concerned their kids are being, molested at school. And this whole thing started in Loudoun County, Virginia, as we all know, and it was a father who was arrested because he was concerned that his daughter had been raped in a bathroom by someone of the opposite sex who identified as a girl that day. The school tried to cover it up. The school sent the rapist to another school where he sexually assaulted another girl. And the school tried again to cover it up. And they arrest the father. So this is lunacy that's going on in this country, and we've got to put an end to it.
And in Virginia, they did, because in the next election, and I live in Virginia, the next election went red. It went Republican. So
yeah, Glenn Youngkin, absolutely. And the truth is that, it's just a question of highlighting what's happening. The Americans are very, very clear of what's going on with this transgender nonsense, and they're not buying it, and they don't want their kids being subjected to it. And as a prosecutor, if you showed my, any kid 5 years old how it is to commit a, sex with someone of the same age, then, you've got a situation where, that to me, that's child pornography. So, yeah.
You raised a good point a minute ago when you were talking about how the left wants us to become Venezuela and another depressed communist type country like that. Is there any conceivable way that you can look at what the left does in both the politics and culture and conclude that it's only because they want the best for America? Is there any way that you can conclude other than this is a purposeful strategy to destroy America?
Well, you'd have to have a lobotomy to assume that was the case. The truth is that, the intent is to change this capitalist nation to a socialist, Marxist country. Thank you. And there is no other indication of what they want. Look, the whole concept is that what you want is you want to have everybody gets a trophy for showing up. There's no merit system anymore. You show up, you get a trophy. And if you compete and they're number one, they don't want to grade people anymore. So this is a real problem in this country. It is clearly part of a Marxist socialist effort by the left, and they've been the loudest. And I wrote Crimes Against America because I want people to see it's happening in education. It's happening in law enforcement. It's happening in free speech. How free speech is now being turned into you can only say what we want you to say in a way that we want you to say it. So, all in all, it's not a great place that we're in right now in this country.
How concerned are you when you see polls and surveys showing that the youth of America are increasingly embracing socialism and scorning capitalism? Do you see that as just a normal trend of youth to believe in the power of socialism, and as they get out and about in the real world, they turn more conservative? Or do you see that as worrisome, a reflection of where America is leading?
Well, that's a great question, because as you well know, which is the reason I suspect you asked the question, is young people have a favorable view of socialism. That has been part of the indoctrination of our kids. But for COVID, we would never have known about any of this. So I don't know if when they grow up in the real world, they'll say, gee, we were wrong about all that stuff. I really am not clear that that's going to happen. I think that, it's like Margaret Thatcher said, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. I think these kids think it's great because they're living, this generation, they're living in a way where they are, very comfortable relying on parents and relying on the country. And I think COVID put us in a place where, we began to believe that this country owes us a living. And, you can thank, again, Joe Biden for the fact that inflation is at a 40-year high and all of the other stuff that goes along with that.
Yeah, I'm not too optimistic, like you just said, that these youth will grow up and become more conservative, because there's nothing out there that is pushing them to believe that conservative principles work for them.
Well, there is nothing out there that pushes them for that. But in addition to that, all of their friends and everyone in corporations, especially in the heads of corporations now, believe that, believe that, it is a scenario where they are, they're going to be provided for. And they just take that as Bible, and that's the end of it. It's why all these world corporations are headed, corporations are headed by woke CEOs. They've gone through the education. They've gone through the indoctrination. And that is why it is a belief system right now that will be very hard to change.
Just a couple more questions to wrap up, Judge. I'm curious what you think of Marjorie Taylor Greene's impeachment articles. She's not the only one who's brought forward such an idea on Capitol Hill, but what do you think of the tone of the impeachment quest from Republicans, the reality of it being actually pushed forward, and whether it should be brought forward at all?
Of whom?
Impeachment of Joe Biden, my bad. Yeah, I know there's so many to choose from.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Mayorkas.
Right.
Of course, I mean, that man should absolutely be impeached. Look, they put the last president through hell.
Yep.
We all know that. It's amazing he was able to accomplish what he accomplished, given the pushback every day by the left. But I think that, fair play is fair play. And I think that that's got to be done. I think that the Republicans have to show that when they get in office, that they have a Department of Justice that is fair, that is equitable, and that doesn't have two systems of justice, which is what Americans are so disgusted with right now, what I talk about in the book as well. There are two systems of justice in this country. Hillary Clinton, according to the Durham report, made up the Russia collusion, delusion, the whole hoax. She told Joe Biden and she told Barack Obama. And they knew about it. And she tore this country apart. She had families hating each other, believing that the President of the United States was a Putin puppet. And this was all her plan. As she admitted to them, she wanted to get them off the email scandal. That she was, that she couldn't seem to get off her back. And so she tore the country apart. And there's got to be accountability for that kind of thing. There's got to be, accountability for an FBI director who sends an unverified affidavit to a FISA court to spy on an American, violate his Fourth Amendment rights, and go after the President of the United States.
Absolutely. And, whether there's accountability in this world or not, there will be ultimately, at least Christians believe in America, that there will be accountability for these political scandals and so forth. And just getting back to your book, your most recent book, Crimes Against America, available now at judgejbook.com. The title begs the...
Amazon or any bookstore. It's everywhere now.
It is everywhere, and it's bound to be a New York Times bestseller or Amazon bestseller, all the bestseller lists, because your books always do well, because you hit hard at what matters in America. So the title alone, Crimes Against America, it makes me think of the question, during your research, what was the worst or a couple of the worst crimes against America?
I think that the takedown of police is it is the indication that law and order is out, chaos and anarchy are in, the cashless bail. Ordinary Americans are subjected to everyday criminal activity by violent offenders who are not kept in jail. That is a problem. I can talk about a FISA warrant, and people could say, that doesn't affect my everyday life. But when you talk about cashless bail, when you talk about Soros-funded prosecutors who want to, release the criminal and just tell the victim, too bad, you had a rough day. We are seeing a breakdown in the social contract where the government is protecting the people, and we are seeing a people and criminals who are emboldened to reoffend and reoffend again. The fact that in drugstores they have to lock up items, the fact that police are told not to arrest if it's less than $1,000, all of this bodes very poorly for truth and justice in this country, and it bodes very poorly for someone who's in a business, a small business, or for people who just want to, have a safe place to live and raise their family.
And it should be a nonpartisan issue, and that's a great point to rally around that you brought up about crime in communities.
Yep.
Crimes Against America, Judge Jeanine Pirro, your latest book, another bestseller, I'm sure. You are a great American patriot. Thank you for fighting for America, and thank you for being back on Bold and Blunt.
And thank you so much for having me. Thank you to your listeners, and thank you for what you do. Never underestimate what you do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
She speaks for so many and so well, doesn't she? Crimes Against America, that's the latest book. It's sure to be a great read, enlightening read, important read, and I hope you pick up a copy. In the meanwhile, I want to thank you for being a regular listener to Bold and Blunt. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do so at edify.app, at washingtontimes.com, or just to make it easy for you, wherever podcasts are offered. Just go to your search engine and type in Bold and Blunt Podcast or Bold and Blunt with Cheryl Chumley and sign up. Comes out Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.